Thank you for coming out for our third community conversation. Our district is a large geographical space. And so generally when we have these type of conversations, we do them in at least two different locations. This time, because of the subject, we decided to do it in three. So this is our third meeting in 7 days. And I call it one meeting, three locations, because we literally are doing the exact same presentations in each location. So our first one we held at the Varina High School last Monday evening. And then Thursday, we were at the Elko Community Center in the evening. And then this is our morning or midday meeting. And so thank all of you for being here in whatever form you're here, whether you're a resident or you represent an organization, et cetera. There are two different presentations this morning that we're going to have, and then we'll open it up for questions from the floor about anything that you want to talk about, and we'll do the best that we can to answer those questions. John Zanino is our Recreation and Parks Director, and he is going to highlight a couple different things. We have a lot going on in our district alone as it relates to recreation and park activities, whether it's things going on in our parks or programs. And so I'm appreciative of him being here this morning. And then we're going to hear from Ben Seal, who is one of our head planners. And he's going to talk about a new proposed ordinance, zoning ordinance, that could be a part of our upcoming comprehensive plan. Where we are in the comprehensive plan process right now, the redesign of it. And so this could be a part of it. We are throwing out an idea of a new ordinance or new zoning classification that could be used, and just trying to get a sense of what individuals think about it. All right. And so after those two presentations, the one thing I will ask is that when we did this presentation last week, Mrs. Zanino's presentation is really only like 10 or 15 minutes long. And it was an hour for his presentation because there were so many individual questions, and then they veered off into other questions. So I'm going to ask that we let him make the presentation, and then we'll answer all the questions afterward. So we'll hear from him, then we'll go to Mr. Seal, then we'll open the floor up and do the best that we can to answer whatever questions we can. If for some reason you ask a question that I cannot answer or one of them cannot answer, then I promise you we'll get your information and get back to you. All right? I'm going to turn the floor over to our to our Recreation and Park Director, Mr. Zanino.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. So I've got a couple subjects to talk to you guys about this morning. As Mr. Nelson said, we have a lot of exciting projects going on in the Varina district. So I'm going to start to give you guys an update on some of those projects. Hopefully you've heard of some of these, and if not, I'll give you some of those details. And then I'll go through some of the upcoming events that we have specifically in this district. So to start, the first project I want to talk about is at 4 Mile Creek. So at 4 Mile Creek, we will be doing a visitor experience. So if you're not familiar with this park, this is the busiest trailhead on the Capitol Trail, right off of Route 5. And it currently is just a trailhead with a restroom. We dedicated that restroom last year, and now we will be adding a visitor welcome center or visitor experience. So the idea is at this site, we will take a replica of the original Henrico Courthouse, and on 3 sides of that building, you will see a replica of what the courthouse would have looked like. But on the back end, it will be open air so that we can interpret and use that space dawn till dusk. So inside that space, we're going to use it to interpret Henrico's rich history, specifically here in the Varina district, but also we can touch on other stories of Henrico. We can do a lot of different exhibits using traditional displays, but also using some multimedia. But the beauty of being able to do it as an open air building allows us to not have to staff the building and have this building open dawn till dusk. And then it also really leans into our user group that's primarily using that site, which is the bike community, who are traveling between Richmond and Williamsburg along the Capitol Trail. So we're really trying to lean into that audience. The second project I'd like to talk about, which is really at this same location, is right across the street. We are proposing a new trail called the New Market Height Trail. We actually had a planning meeting earlier this summer to get some community input on this trail, and wanted to provide you guys a little bit of an update on where we're at. So this is, if you're not familiar with this, it would be a trail that goes from New Market Height Park, or New Market Height property, which is literally right across the street from the 4 Mile Creek trailhead on Route 5. And the trail would go from that property down to Deep Bottom Park. So it's 3.2 miles of trail that would connect the 4 Mile Creek Trail down to Deep Bottom. And then if you use the Capitol Trail, you could actually get to Dory Park. So this is really a north-south trail. Like I said, it's 3.2 miles that would terminate at Deep Bottom Park. We are in the design phase of this project. It is not funded for construction yet, although we are looking for some funding. We actually applied for a transportation alternative grant, and then Public Works will actually be starting a project later this calendar year, doing a wetland and stream restoration project. And with that project, they will be able to start the northern section of that trail. We will be able to do the southern section of that trail with bond money that we got from the 2022 bond referendum at for Deep Bottom Park. So we're looking for funding for that middle section, but just wanted to provide a little bit of an update on that project. And then the third project I want to talk about is actually not in the Recreation and Parks portfolio. It's actually a part of a school project with general government. It is the living building at the Wilton property here in the Varina district. So the living building, if you're not familiar with this, is a classification. So living building is it's a classification of a building efficiency. So if you've ever heard of like a LEED building, this is the highest level that you can receive for a building. And Henrico is looking to achieve the first K-12 educational facility in the world to receive this living building certification. There's actually only 30 buildings in the entire world that have that classification, and this would be the first K through 12 school facility to receive that. So construction is slated to start later this year, with completion of being a fall of next year for the school year. It would be a 15,000 square foot facility, a $16.3 million project. This building would not host individual kids every day, but would be a place for field trips, and then it primarily serves as a satellite site for the Varina High School Specialty Center for the Environmental Center. So they would, the Environmental Specialty Centers out at Varina, they would be using this site to do a lot of their field work. And again, this sits out at Wilton Farm. It sits on 62 of the acres out there. I believe the next slide will show you kind of a footprint of where it will be, back by a lake that we call Whale Lake. And just a little bit about the Living Building Challenge. So the Living Building Challenge has 7 performance standards. They actually call them petals that you have to achieve. And those petals are your place. So restoring a healthy inner relationship with nature, water. So you have to have a net positive water usage. Energy, net positive energy use. So not only are you off the grid, but you're actually through that site feeding the grid. And then there's health and happiness, materials, equity, and beauty. So that is a school project, but we're excited about it through Mr. Nelson's vision, along with Dr. Cashwell, to really bring this project to life. I don't have a slide on this, but wanted to talk just a little bit about a project we have at Taylor Farm Park. If you have not been to Taylor Farm Park, we just opened that park. It's our newest park. We opened it a year ago. We actually received our first national award. We received the 2025 Innovation Award from our national body, NRPA, the National Recreation and Park Association. But if you've been there, you know that parking can be a challenge. So we've only been open a year, and we already recognized that we needed to add additional parking. So if you've been out there recently, you might see a little bit of work going on. We are adding 100 additional parking spaces. We're adding 3 bus spaces, and then a support building for our maintenance supplies. We did some earlier work at that park over the winter into the spring to do some work around the rest of the interactive play stream to make that some hardscaping so that it would function a little bit better. That work was already completed this past spring. And then the parking project is underway now and should be done in the next 4 to 6 weeks. And then more to come on that. We are looking to go back in and add some shade structures, and then also expand our swing sets. So if you've been out there, there's a lot of unique play equipment, but we don't have as many traditional swing sets. There's only 2. We're actually looking at adding an additional area that will also have a accessible swing set at that site. So that's kind of the project. So now you can see we've got a couple events. One of them just took place this past weekend. So when I did this last week, it was coming up, but from all accounts, I heard that it was a success. We did a farmers market or fall festival out at the Dory's Farmers Market this past Saturday. Coming up in December, we have a open house at Clark Palmer House. And then we've got a couple other events on the next slide. So we do a Holiday Express tour every year. This came out of COVID. This year we're starting the Holiday Express tour here in the Varina district. So that is the first week of December. And then we have a park, an evening event at Dory Park. And then here at this building, we have Dollar Movies. And then we're also hosting the U.S. Jazz Ambassadors. If you're not familiar with that group, it's a group out of the U.S. Army Band. It's one of their national bands. They're only in this area of the country every 4 to 5 years. And they will be here at Henrico Theater in November. It's a free concert, so get with the staff here if you want to attend. We hosted them about a decade ago, but it is an honor to be able to host them, so we're excited about that. Actually, if you go back in the theater, there is a picture from the last time they were here, I believe, in that hallway. And then the last thing I'd like to talk about is a new way to provide us some feedback. So one of the things that we have came to our attention is that when people are in our parks using our trails or our shelters, they might not know the best way to communicate with us, particularly if there's something in the park that they have found that they want to bring to our attention. Maybe it's an area that needs some maintenance, maybe it's some trash that's overflowing, or there's just some general concerns. So we have launched a new feedback form. So we will be putting signs throughout all of our park systems with QR codes where you can scan the code, and then there's a simple 3 to 4 questions of just where you are at, what type of feedback would you like, and then what are you seeing. And you can do that from the park, so you'll see probably several hundred signs go up in the next couple weeks. And this is really just geared towards you're in the park, you see something and you want to bring it to our attention, and you don't want to have to look up our phone number or email. So you can do that, scan the code, and give us feedback so we can address whatever the issue or whatever you want to provide us. We'll be able to answer that. This does not replace any of our other forms of communication. So if you've already built relationships with staff, or worked with certain areas, those are still in place. You can still email us, you can still call us. But this is just another way, particularly in the park where people are using their trails and using our parks and may not know who best to go to, you'll be able to do that. So with that, I will open it up for any questions you have on anything that I presented or just in general for recreation and parks. Yeah.
Good morning, and thank you. Good morning, and thank you so much. I do want to commend the Recreation and Parks Department for all that you all are doing. I use Dory Park all the time. I play tennis, I walk, you name it, I do it out there in Dory. And then I also love the new park. I do have a question about the proposed open air facility that you're planning out at 4 Mile Creek. What are you doing to ensure that you have a composite representation of different cultures and how they have contributed to Henrico?
Thank you for that question. So we actually have someone in the audience. Julian Charity is our division director over history. So he and his team put together a list of several stories that could be told. And we will bring those stories to our Historic Preservation Committee to review. The beauty of this site is, one, we'll be able to tell multiple stories at that site. But the other idea is that we would create a space where we can rotate exhibits. So if the story that we want to tell is not there from the original project, we'll be able to rotate things in and out throughout the year. So it might be a couple times a year, we will have certain exhibits that can be swapped out. Also, if we incorporate some technology that makes swapping exhibits out easier. But if you have a particular story or are interested in some of the ideas that we've put together, we can get your information. And if it's not something we've already considered, we could consider that. But his staff is really the one that's curating the stories. And we're looking to tell history throughout the area and the county, not just one specific time. There will be several stories and opportunities there.
Any other questions? Yes, ma'am. So come with the mic. And we're using the mic because there are people watching online. So the only way they'll hear the question is on the microphone.
Good morning, and I want to thank Tyrone Nelson, Mr. Nelson, because every time in the past that I have gotten with him about different situations, he's always come through for us. So I want to thank him for that. Also, would it be possible to make Henrico County policemen present in the parks sometime, just riding through or even sitting? Because I walk a lot at the park early in the mornings, and sometimes it would be nice just to see a policeman come through for some of the different people that we see at the park that always don't make you feel too comfortable.
So which park specific?
Well, I didn't want to sing outdoor park, but I thought it would be good for any of the parks that anybody go out and walk.
So I can thank you for the question. Let me tell you what we are currently doing. So we currently do have Henrico Police on the weekends do a park patrol. There's several officers assigned throughout the county that have a presence on Saturday and Sundays in our parks. During the week, they is not a dedicated team. It is more for the officers that are in the area patrolling. But we do have a dedicated team on the weekends. I think there's 6 to 8, depending on what we have going on a given weekend. We scale back in the wintertime, and in the spring and summer, we scale up. We also have launched a new security initiative in our park system that we're going to be putting in 36 of our 56 locations. We're probably 10 to 15 parks have already been completed. Taylor Farm was the first site for that, where we're putting cameras in at our parking lots, and these are AI cameras, so we're leveraging technology with these cameras, and what the cameras will do is they will notify us without anyone having to watch the footage. So we don't have staff that are dedicated watching this. But what happens is someone does something they're not supposed to, specifically coming in after hours or congregating after hours. A notification immediately gets sent into the 911 communication center, where they can pull up the footage, see what's going on, and then respond as needed. So we've launched this at Taylor Farm. It'll be coming to pretty much every park that we have parking lots. So there's 36 locations. But it also does other things, like it can detect glass breaks. So if someone were to do smash and grabs, we had an issue at Deep Run Park. And we've seen that go down by 80% since we've started installing this technology, because now we can get notifications. The second it hears that sound, it sends out a notifications. It does things like weapons detection, gunshot detection. So that helps us provide another layer of security when we can't have officers at all locations at all times. So that is something that we've installed at Taylor Farm. We also put out some of these code blue stations. I believe we also have those at East Rec. So you're going to see more of those types of security measures show up in our park system, because the reality is, with 56 parks, we can't provide the physical presence at all of the parks that we would like. So that is, when we can't provide that physical presence, another way for us to provide that. But I can certainly work with my contact with police on, what type of presence we have, but that's what we've currently been doing.
All right, thank you. Any other questions before we move to the next presentation? Yes, we have a question up here. All right, hold on, let them get you the microphone. And duly noted, though, we will make sure that we ask the community officer specifically to do some morning runs through Dory Park.
I just wondered if you could briefly update us on Deep Bottom in terms of the development there that's planned.
Yeah, so Deep Bottom Park was part of the 2022 referendum. It's a $7 million project to restore the park. We actually requested and received some of our bond money this fiscal year, so we can start the design and planning process, because we do anticipate that it is going to take a significant amount of time to permit the work, because of the location next to the James. One of the items that we would like to address is our boat launch. If you're familiar with that boat launch, it cannot accommodate larger vessels because it drops off almost immediately. So we're trying to make improvements to that, but anytime you're making improvements on a waterway, particularly that section of the James, you can have shipping vessels come through. It takes longer to permit. So we got our design money to start the process this fiscal year. So we just got that in July. We will get our construction money in not this coming fiscal, but the following one. So it would be July of 27. So our staff right now are coming up with ideas of what they would like to. We already kind of have an idea of some of the things that need fixing, but we will be surveying and coming up with, I'll have a meeting with Mr. Nelson to kick that off, so that we can start the design and then be ready in 2 years when we get the construction money to do the actual project.
All right. Is that it for recreation and parks? All right. And so we have one more exciting thing. I'm biased. I think we have the best parks in the entire county. First of all, we have the best parks in the Commonwealth in Henrico County, but we have the best parks in the county in Varina. So Dory and Taylor seem to get rightfully so because they're two incredible parks. But we have things going on in other places. So Mrs. Anino is going to bring you up to speed on an idea that came out of development, that a rezoning application back in 2023, 2024, a community that is named Arcadia, which is actually coming out of the ground now on Route 5. One of the ideas during the zoning request was to create a community farm in the middle of the development. One of the challenges with that was if you did a community farm in the middle of the development, somebody was gonna have to maintain it and you got to pay to do that. And that would be increased costs on the homeowners, et cetera. So we came up with a way to take the community farming idea and do it on our site so that we could have control of it. So we finally have some progress and we're excited about what's to come with that. So Mrs. Anino, update you on it. Yeah,
So we'll be doing a community farm on a property off of Willis Church Road. We call it the Runnymede property. We're going to be taking about 20 to 30 acres of that site to do this. That site's, I believe, almost 2,000 acres. So the rest of the site will still be leased for commercial farming, but we're going to take a section to do smaller plots. This is not gardening, so don't think raised beds. It is more, they're going to be quarter to half acre plots where residents can apply for a plot to farm their own area. We've been working with a nonprofit called Happily Natural Day. They will be the ones overseeing the day-to-day boots on the ground operation. But later this week, we'll be doing a little event out there to kick off that project. We've got a lot of the infrastructure in place. So we will be hopefully announcing soon when the application for individuals who are interested will go out, and we'll be able to do some work this fall on site for maybe some winter crops, but really in the spring we'll be prepared to be able to really get the project going. So again, working with Happily Natural Day, and more to come on that, but this week we'll be kind of kicking that off. Thank you. All right.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate you. We're going to move forward now to our planning portion of the evening, of the day. I will say the main event. We're going to turn it over to Ben Seal.
Good morning. I'm happy to be in the main event, I guess, here and follow up on all the exciting stuff that Recreation and Parks is doing. Excited to be with you this morning to kind of discuss some of the ongoing work that's been happening with our comprehensive plan update. All of you being here are kind of tuned in on what's happening in Varina, so have obviously heard us talking about the comprehensive plan update over the last couple of years. So it's not going to be a new topic for many of you, but we have been making some exciting progress this summer and wanted to talk to you about that. This summer, our focus has been on engaging the community, revising the plan and our process based on that feedback, and making some tangible progress on completing the draft plan that would be out in the community for review in the near future. Throughout this process, we've been emphasizing the importance of community involvement in shaping that plan. We actively encourage and engage residents so that we can ensure that any revisions we're making reflect their needs and aspirations, and that helps lead to a more inclusive and effective planning process as we move forward. Happens without me looking. Public engagement has been a critical component of the Henrico Next process. This has included our participation in various community events. You might have seen us at Dory for a couple of the farmers markets, the Plant Native Festival, Glen Allen Day. So throughout the county, we've been at a number of events. We had listening sessions at area libraries that kind of ensured that our vision statements were consistent with the community aspirations we'd heard during earlier survey events. And then the recent future land use suggestion sessions where we were able to discuss specific land use recommendations for each property in the county with many residents. This third engagement period included the posting of draft land use maps on our website and meeting at high schools in each of the magisterial districts. The overall changes to the future land use maps were relatively minor and are focused on creating redevelopment corridors to help accommodate growth that we anticipate in the county. The suggestion sessions provided residents and other stakeholders an opportunity to view a video about the Henrico Next process and goals for each of those meetings. After viewing the video, interested residents were able to visit with staff to discuss specific properties and what was planned for their area. They were then provided the means for placing comments on our online mapping tool or with our staff, and they could do so at home as well in a more convenient time for them. This meant that anyone attending the meeting or visiting our website during that time period was able to provide comments on those draft maps. To top it all off, we did have some popcorn. The popcorn maker isn't working out here, or isn't on this morning. The last time I was in the theater, it was. But Recreation and Parks was nice enough to loan us a popcorn machine to go with the movie that we were showing in each of the high school auditoriums during that process. So the feedback from those suggestion sessions has really been invaluable to us. We had a good number of over 130 residents who participated in those 5 sessions, and they helped provide insights on the draft future land use maps. Notably, more than half of the comments that we received focused on managing development intensity, highlighting community desires for preserving agricultural land and rural preservation. This feedback is essential as we consider broader changes to our land use strategies, ensuring that they're aligning with those the community vision that I mentioned earlier. So this leads us to our next step in the process, which is kind of revising those plans that we presented to the community earlier this summer based on the feedback that we received from you. Those comments that we received ranged widely. You can see one of the mapping tools that we had out there and the number of comments that are spread throughout the county. As part of the exercise, we categorized all of those comments that we received into one of 5 key themes, similar to what was done with our earlier public input surveys. If you'll recall, back at the beginning of this process, we sent out a scientific survey through VCU's Survey, Evaluation, and Research Laboratory to total of about 8,000 people throughout the community to kind of provide feedback. Those themes included development intensity management, transportation infrastructure, supporting development and revitalization, natural resources, and parks and recreation facilities. So I think you'd agree that those are topics that if you were involved in this process, you've heard residents mention as we've gone through. This means that at least 2 of the key themes are related to managing the intensity of development and the protection of our natural resources here in the county. In fact, almost half of the comments we received were related to this larger goal of preservation of land. So in addition to the requested changes that are more property specific, so we had residents who said, I would like my property to be designated differently, or I would like somebody else's property to be designated differently. In addition to those really property focused comments, we also received these more general comments. And because of that, we started thinking bigger. We started to think, what big change could we make that would show that we heard the community's voice as part of this process? And so that change is what I'd like to discuss with you this morning. And it's the creation of a new future land use designation in our comprehensive plan. It's called Prime Agriculture and Rural Conservation. The definition of this new designation is on the screen behind me, but as described, we're including areas that are already used or suitable for agricultural uses, as well as those where we don't anticipate expanded infrastructure or rezoning for more intensive uses in the future. We also wanted to use this new designation to emphasize that intended uses include agriculture, agricultural support uses, and residential uses on larger lots. In addition to the definition, we have drafted 4 focus policies for this land use group, which are also shown on the screen. These focus policies aim to maintain the historic rural character of these areas, and by promoting larger lot sizes and limiting public utilities, we can ensure that new developments align with the community's vision for preserving open space and agricultural land. Considering these policies as future ordinance revisions and land use decisions are made will help solidify our commitment to sustainable land use and community values. This includes a potentially systemic change in how we handle the by right subdivision of agricultural land in certain areas of the county. Henrico has historically had a relatively low, small agricultural minimum lot size of 1 acre per home. With this new change, we are recommending increasing the minimum lot size to 5 acres in these PARC areas through future amendments to the zoning ordinance. So there would be necessary amendments to the zoning ordinance to enact that. We would also discourage the extension of water and public sewer to explicitly encourage the conservation of land in these areas through the creation of conservation easements. So with this morning, we've talked about kind of what the big change is that we wanted to have a conversation with you about this morning and why, how it was driven by the community concerns and feedback that we received this summer. Now it's really essential that we start talking about where. What is the location when we're talking about this new prime agricultural rural conservation area? So on the screen is the Varina District Future Land Use Map that we had out in the community at our suggestion session this summer. As expected, this area of the county was discussed extensively at our last meeting at Highland Springs High School. That wrapped up our series of 5 meetings this spring. You can see large areas of Varina were already designated for rural residential or prime agriculture. Those are kind of the tan and light green areas on the lower right half of your screen. We had also changed a couple of primary parcels that you're likely aware of. Reverend Nelson's talked about them with you in the past to government as part of recent purchases, both with Wilton on the James and the Varina Farm property. Those are the 2 larger government properties that are along the curves of the James River that you can see there on the lower half of the district. Even with those designations and commitments, we believed that we could do better than what we showed on the screen. Building on the focused policies that would recommend limiting utility extensions and increasing the minimum lot size, we examined all of the recommended land use areas in Varina, especially those east of Interstate 295. And the result of that is what you see on the screen here. It's an expansion of an already good idea, which was our areas designated prime agriculture. Those are the light green areas on the previous screen. By recognizing that land east of I-295 and south of the White Oak Swamp is largely not suitable for more intensive development. The next slide highlights a couple of key areas of change. And those are in addition to the focus policies that I kind of highlighted before. And all of that would regulate, those focus policies would help guide our analysis and our decision-making as we move forward if the plan was adopted. Some of the notable changes include the reconsideration of properties previously designated for rural residential or suburban residential 1. And just to give you some context, rural residential is generally similar, but that's lots on 1 acre. And then suburban residential 1 is detached homes up to about 2.5 units per acre. So 13 to 15,000 square foot lots is what those 2 areas are. And so the lower left, you can see the tan is the rural residential, and then up closer to Williamsburg Road and east of White Oak Technology Park, you'll see a couple of areas that are in yellow. Those were the suburban residential 1 designated areas that we examined further. I would note here that these recommended changes would not impact entitled projects such as the Ridings at Wormer Farm, which is down at Turner Road and Newmarket Road, or properties that are already zoned for that more intensive development. So if they already have R2A zoning, they are entitled to develop in that manner. But it would impact how we evaluate future land use decisions. So what's the result of this? Quite frankly, it's very substantial. Approximately 23,000 acres in Varina would now be designated for prime agriculture or rural conservation and subject to those focus policies we discussed. This is in addition to the over 3,100 acres held by the county and recommended for government, and over 1,800 acres, designated for open space or recreation at this time. We also have over 9,000 acres in Varina that are designated for environmental protection. So those are areas that are impacted by the 100-year floodplain along the James River or the Chickahominy River, and other areas where you see floodplain throughout. In all, approximately 27% of Varina would be designated for prime agriculture or rural conservation. When you include those government designated properties like Wilton on the James or Varina Farm, those properties designated open space or recreation. So for that, you're thinking Dory Park, Taylor Farm Park, Deep Bottom Park, and those EPA properties east of I-295, so all of the floodplain along the Chickahominy. Over 47% of Varina and over 26% of the county of a whole would be impacted by the discussions we're having this morning. So it's a big change and a big chunk of the county that we're talking about when we're looking at this. So When you start talking about 47% of the land area in Varina being impacted, it does kind of bring the question or raise the question of what does this do to the plan as a whole? We know that we still anticipate growth of about 1% per year, and that's the result of some background research that we've been doing as part of the comprehensive plan. We know that we're talking about 3,000 to 4,000 residents a year that are the result of families growing in our community, or people moving here for work, or people choosing to live here because of the quality of life we enjoy. We know that we'll just have to figure out how that growth is reallocated out of the area east of I-295. Technically, that area could have accommodated somewhere on the realm of 9,300 homes moving forward. That's what, like, a conservative guess based on environmental constraints and the existing A1 zoning. Those proposed development standards would bring that down to about 4,300 homes if the changes that I'm talking about were enacted. So again, if the zoning ordinance was changed to increase the minimum lot size in that area east of 295. We didn't allocate a ton of growth in this area in our background research because we do know that it's relatively limited. There's a lot of environmental constraints, but it's still something that we have to factor in because we need to understand the Code of Virginia requires that we evaluate what growth is anticipated in our area and figure out how can we accommodate those people moving here. It impacts everything from, you know, housing affordability to schools to fire and other public safety agencies. So we need to accommodate that. That's something that we're required to do. So we needed to figure out where does this growth go. So our preliminary discussions with the consultant indicate that we can likely accommodate that. And I mentioned earlier some of our redevelopment corridors. We're really focused on that in this plan. So areas like Williamsburg Road, the Broad Street corridor in Western Henrico, Brook Road in Central Henrico, where we envision that you'll see some denser development along some of those corridors that are served by public transit. So a lot of this growth that might have happened in this area could be accommodated in those redevelopment corridors. So that's one of the things that our consultant's looking at now. So all that being said, kind of what's next? We discussed these changes with the Board of Supervisors in late September and then with our Planning Commission on October 9th. And based on the conversations we had at those time, we're going with our consultant and telling them to start incorporating these new recommendations into our draft plan. As that discussion continues, we'll continue to finalize the various plan elements, and that includes kind of, you know, just to outline what the structure of our plan will look like. It's an introduction, a key planning influences chapter. Some of you might have visited the henriconext.us website. That a portion of that chapter has been posted for some time for community feedback. And our environment chapter, which we anticipate will be much more robust in this plan than it was in our 2026 comprehensive plan. Managed and sustainable growth, and that'll talk about land use and infrastructure, where are utilities going, where do our other, you know, where do we need fire stations, schools, things like that. Safe and connected spaces, which is our transportation chapter. And then our high quality livable places, which is our community character, and a big element of that is our recreation and parks master plan. And luckily we were able to get that approved already. That went through the Board of Supervisors last year. So Mr. Zanino and his staff, and they've already got that new master plan in place. So that's an element of the comprehensive plan that people might not even recognize is already an element of the plan that's been adopted and out there. And then we'll also ultimately have an implementation chapter as well. So that's kind of who's responsible for what, who's responsible for monitoring the growth of the plan, who's responsible for taking next steps on that. So we're working on those draft chapters. We expect that we'll receive some of those from our consultant shortly. And our hope is that we would be with the plan in front of the Planning Commission with draft chapters sometime in the near future. And as that work progresses, we would anticipate taking the draft plan elements out to the community for a final round of public engagement prior to the required public hearing. So we not only will be back out into the public to kind of get your thoughts on these draft chapters, but at the end of the day, there are also public hearings that are required in front of both the Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors. And the Planning Commission and Board have been very focused on this. So they're obviously expecting to and hoping to hear from the community as this plan moves forward. So with that, that's everything that I wanted to kind of speak to. We can go back to the previous slide. That's everything that I'd hope to speak to, and happy to take any questions you might have at this time. How was that good? No, okay. All right. If I could just have you wait for the microphone. Thank you.
Okay. I was wondering, there was a map there that said the year 2045. And I was wondering if that if there was a map or a plan that coincided with our water issues, and if the water issues are going to be alleviated and fixed prior to that 2045 and prior to the 4,300 additional homes that are planned, how we're going to accomplish all of that using Henrico water and not the city of Richmond.
So that's a separate element that obviously our Department of Public Utilities, Mr. Nelson, has been very involved in that conversation, and they already have plans progressing for solving that particular issue. And the only thing that I'd note there, as far as I know that they had a meeting back in September about the water transmission main that would address the connection to the city. But just real quickly on the 4,300 homes, that's just what could be done in our existing. We need to evaluate if every person who owned 20 acres in Varina decided that they wanted to subdivide their property. That's what we're talking about. It was going from, could you have 1 acre lots to having 5 acres? So there's no plan for 4,300 homes to go into that area. It's just we have to evaluate what's possible under the zoning. Did you want to speak to anything about the water?
I think, and I'm sorry, I was walking around the building. I think the 4,300 homes are also in a place where I don't think we are extending water and sewer. So we have a bigger plan that we have set aside in this fiscal year, $50 million. It's a $300 million cost to extend water deeper into Varina to make sure that that we're able to get water to as many people as possible. I'm not sure whether this particular area will be served with water and sewer. In essence, what we are trying to do is to conserve and preserve as much green space as we can, while also looking at in areas that we already have development to redevelop, infill, et cetera. So it's a balancing act in the district. I think it's a question back in the back. Okay. Yes.
Oh, okay. Hi. I think I understand my question. If you don't, I apologize. I think one of your 4 principles was about limiting water and utilities to these PARC areas to limit further development. Can you just maybe explain that a little bit more?
Certainly. So one of the things that determines how many homes can be developed on a piece of property is whether or not it can be served, have water and sewer service. In most of these areas, it's done through a well and a septic system with a drain field. The soils can be limiting, and so you might end up needing more land for each home because of the soil type that's there, because you might not be able to find a well site and a drain field site for your septic system. So what ends up happening is if you have public utilities available, that part of the equation is solved. So you can go down to a 1 acre minimum lot size much more easily than if you have to find a drain field site. So that's one of the ways that not extending water and sewer to those areas can help limit growth. Because if you see, denser development tends to follow sewer lines, especially because the drain fields really are a defining factor in how many homes can be constructed on a piece of property.
Yes, I'm curious about the timeline of the rollout. I know not like what month or anything like that, but specifically how the change in the zoning ordinance folds into the acceptance of the comprehensive plan and the draft presentations to the public.
Well, ultimately, that would be up to the Board of Supervisors, but this plan is going to be providing the guidance that would be kind of underlying the future zoning ordinance change. So my anticipation would be that the comprehensive plan would be adopted, and there would be part of the implementation. I mentioned that implementation chapter of the plan. Part of it would be updating the zoning ordinance to bring it in line with the comprehensive plan. And so then that would follow a rollout that we would work with the Planning Commission and Board to, those ordinance revisions have to be initiated by the Planning Commission or Board of Supervisors, so they would start that process. So my anticipation would be, it would be after the comprehensive plan is adopted. How long after the comprehensive plan is adopted would be up to the Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors to determine.
Any other questions?
Good morning. Thank you, Ben, for all of that, and Reverend Nelson. So my name is John Montgomery, and Bland and I have been to each of these meetings and have enjoyed each one of them and learned more each along the way. One of the things that we've decided to do as a group is recruit you and others to have a series of a couple of 3 meetings. So when we get to the point where Ben mentioned the feedback, that we have an opportunity to provide, I think, constructive and well thought out feedback. So in the last 2 meetings, we had a dozen or so folks sign up. It won't be a lot of meetings. It won't be a lot of time. We'll try to be focused in an effort to do that. So this is not a county sanctioned or planning department sanctioned group of folks. But on the other hand, I think it would be encouraged is probably a good way to suggest it. So at the end of the meeting this morning, we'll be in the back for anyone who wants to sign up, and we appreciate it. And obviously, there's no question there, but I appreciate the opportunity to take advantage of the microphone and recruit.
And the only thing I'll tack on there to Mr. Montgomery is that the community is always welcome to provide feedback to the planning department as part of this process. Again, you can go to henriconext.us. I've got some cards here with me if you want to have one of those. There's a way to sign up for email reminders. We've got a couple thousand folks that are on those now. So when we post new things out on the website, that the email reminders go out to folks. So there are lots of, again, we've had 10,000 people, like, probably not 10,000 individuals, but people who have been involved in this process since we started the plan update. So certainly we encourage feedback. It's what this plan is intended to do, is to have that sort of community input.
All right, any other specific questions? So the comp plan has, in essence, kind of pushed this conversation. One of the things that we have heard from our citizens is the desire and need to conserve and preserve land that we have. Once the land is gone, it's gone. You can't go backwards with it. And so I think that has initiated some of this conversation, and has challenged us to look at how then can we preserve and conserve some of the land. All right, so we know, based upon what we are hearing, what we are seeing, that there is still a need for more housing, and so we're taking that into accountability too. So we're not saying we are out of adding more to the housing stock in Henrico County. What we're doing now is just trying to be more strategic in where we will have more urban, suburban communities, and where we really are committed to rural preservation and conservation. And that's our hope. So again, the word proposed is a huge part of this. And we want you to be engaged, involved. Before Ben sits down, I'm gonna ask him one more time to let you guys know how all of the avenues that you can participate in the conversation. You can always reach out to me and to others as we move forward. So it is the line of preserving and conserving while yet still trying to add to the housing stock in certain places. And we not only are we looking at adding in certain spots, but making it affordable, or as affordable as possible in the times that we are in right now. Can you one more time just share how they can get
Sure.
involved?
And I have some cards here. henriconext.us. So just Henrico, next.us is the main website for the comprehensive plan update process. And you'd think I've been doing these presentations for the last couple of years, and pretty sure every last slide I put up there had the website on there, but of course this is the one I forget. So henriconext.us is the best way. There's a place on there to sign up for our email list. We have a project manager who's in charge of that. I also have some of my cards. You're welcome to just email me directly and I can get you added to that as well. So, but the websites are your best avenue for participating in that. Thank you.
All right. Do we have just any general questions that may not have fit into what we were talking about today? All right. I see 1, 2. Let's start here. And I will do the best that I can. If I don't have the answer right now, I will get your name and follow back up.
I had a question about the new fire station that's going up on Gay Avenue.
Mhm.
Is there any plan to have a traffic light at that intersection where that fire station is going up? Because that intersection is real small.
Mhm. It will. It will have a.
Oh, they will have a traffic? Oh, good.
Yes, ma'am.
That's good.
Yep.
Oh, I had one other question. The planning for the housing and everything that's going in, what kind of plans are there for like commercial properties? Physician, whatever, what kinds of things are planned for all of that involved in with all the housing that's going up?
So what we do is provide opportunity for it. So the zoning classifications allow certain uses for particular communities, et cetera. And so right now, I guess you have to tell me, and we can talk afterward about where you are, and if there are things that I may know of, I'll let you know. But every community is different. They have different zoning classifications, different uses, et cetera. So I'll get with you afterwards, and you tell me where you are, and if there's anything that I know of, I'll let you know what's going on. All right. We did have another question up front here. Can we come up front here first, and then we'll go back to the back?
I have a concern, and I'm not quite sure if you can do something about it, but I like giving it to you because you're so helpful with all of this.
Thank you.
Leaving from the Varina area, going down the Market Road, heading to the city, down by the Annabelle Lee, between New Orleans or Orleans Street and Nicholson Street. I don't know exactly where the city of Richmond come in, but at those two streets, if we could get that lights to be green at the same time, early morning at 7:30 or 8 o'clock going out, the traffic can flow better. Those lights are not on the same timing. So I don't know if the county can do something with their light and make it go with the city light, because I don't know how much, the county can do. So can you look into that, or even you can ride that way in the morning?
No, I do. Yeah.
And that traffic, if you can make those two lights synchronize with each other, it would make the flow to that area go better.
So that's a great point. And I will check into that. It's a lot going on at that, and it's a lot going on in that area. In the morning, I was at a community meeting in Rockers Landing about a week and a half ago, and that was one of the main subjects. The traffic buildup in the morning and in the afternoon, and people going through Rockets as a cut through and speeding. And for those of us who've been around for a while, I think we all know that Williamsburg Road being closed for as long as it's been closed is a huge impediment to getting downtown or coming into Varina. But I think this is a good, let me check on the timing of the lights. Right now, I'm not sure what more we can do. The timing of the lights, let me check with that, because that could be something simple. It may be something, there may be a reason why it's not timed the way it's timed. Let me check with that. Once Williamsburg opens back up, I think it's gonna help unclog the bottleneck some. But right now, it's for us, because we're not used to traffic. If people who lived in certain communities that's used to traffic all the time, this is normal. But for us who like to just flow freely, this is definitely a problem. So let me check on that. Thank you for bringing that up. Anybody else? Yes, way in the back and then back up here.
Hi, I was at a community meeting on Friday evening and they had talked about an asphalt company or plant being opened near, I think, was it Montrose Elementary? And that you had asked about it and they told you it was something like you weren't even able to be involved or give your opinion on that the county was just going ahead and letting the asphalt company go in and open up there. So if you could speak to that, if I could get some more details on that.
I'm not. You said community meeting on Friday.
Yeah, it wasn't like a Henrico thing. It was Aileen. It was like the Route 5 corridor,
okay.
and they had mentioned it there. So, and I couldn't find anything online about this, so I just wanted to ask about it here.
So Ben, I don't know if you can speak to the process. The property where the company is has been rezoned for that particular use. And so I'll let our planning staff kind of talk about the process, but the Board of Supervisors makes decisions on rezoning, and the rezoning of a property for a particular use. So where the asphalt company is, I think the first, once I went back and talked to staff and did some research, I think it was either the 30s or the 50s. I don't even think it was the 60s. I know, I've seen some stuff out there, particularly with the person who's been talking specifically about this, that it was the 60s, but I think the use for that particular property goes back now almost 100 years. And so the Board of Supervisors does not approve every particular business and their use. It's more about the rezoning for the use at that particular time. So I'll let Ben, I don't know if Ben can speak specifically to the asphalt piece, and I can talk to you afterwards about that particular piece, but I'll let Ben share what he knows.
So Mr. Nelson is correct, and this site has been zoned for generally industrial use since the early 1930s. So similar, every piece of property in the county has some zoning. So similar to a residential piece of property, the Board of Supervisors doesn't approve every home that's coming in and being built. On industrially zoned property, if they come in and are proposing a use that's allowed in an industrial district, then they only need to get what we call ministerial or an administrative approval of that use, provided it's permitted. So in this particular instance, this property has been zoned for industrial uses for close to 100 years. That means as long as they're proposing a use that our zoning ordinance allows in an industrial district, and there are certain development standards that have to be met, distance requirements to residential zoning, different things like that. And as long as they show that they're meeting the zoning ordinance requirements, we are, by the Code of Virginia, required to approve that use on the piece of property, similar to somebody wanted to come in and build a home or something on their property. So that's what's happening in this particular instance is they have the correct zoning is in place. It's been industrial for a number of years. They're proposing a use that's allowed in that particular zoning district, and they've demonstrated that they are meeting all of the zoning requirements for that use. And therefore, in that situation, the planning department's required to grant approval. So that's what's going on there.
And that is the Gillies Creek area. And so the administrative decision usually is made by the planning director. It does not have to go before the planning commission, does not have to go before the board of supervisors. And generally, our planning director has a particular list of things that they have to make sure that if the particular use does not operate outside of the context of these boxes, then they usually provide administrative approval because they in essence have to. And so I think that's what's going on with this particular case. I know I had an email conversation, with particular individual who has been talking about this piece, and there was, some allusion to an agreement between the local government and the schools that there would be no more development on Gillis Creek. That's not been proven to be true. I know I did not say that. No one in local government has said that, nor can it be proven that anyone first of all, no one on the school side can even make that particular decision. We don't always agree with the usage. I don't, but I also understand that there are certain things that just because I don't like it, I may not have jurisdiction to stop it, particularly if it is a particular use. So it sucks, but that's that it happens sometimes. So yes, another question up here.
You got it. My name is John Vaught. I live on Varina Road, and going Varina Road, crossing Route 5 is Wilson Road. And that big area there that's being cleared, is that the housing development on the Nelson farm that was approved? And I was wondering, is that where all the development will be taking place for that housing development that was approved right there, or will it be other areas on like Route 5 or other areas that will be we'll see as we drive around, or is that where all the houses will be?
So for that particular case, Wilson is the dividing line, so it'll be on both sides, but it's phases to it. So the majority of that piece, those houses will be on the side where you see the clearing now, which is if I'm on Wilson facing the piece, what's clear to the left right now, there is some provisional acceptance to do some to the right of Wilson too, but that's it. So it's not spread all out. It's in that concentrated area right there. Yep. But go ahead. I'll repeat your question. What was it? So if I can remember, the question was traffic impacts about that particular intersection. If I can remember, I think some of the turn lanes are going to be widened. Route 5 itself is not going to be widened, but the turn lanes off of Wilson on one side and maybe Varina on the other side, I can't remember, but the turning lanes, and I think Wilson may spread just a little bit so that there's like a third lane in the middle, if I can remember. So it mainly is about turning in and out of that particular development off of Wilson, but there's no improvements on Route 5. All right. Any other questions? Yes.
I didn't have a question, but I don't know whether other people have recognized the amount of traffic that's on Laburnum Avenue, including a lot of tractor trailer trucks. It's almost like it's so different now than it used to be. There's so much traffic on Laburnum Avenue, and people are driving, just speeding down up and down Laburnum Avenue. It's kind of scary sometimes when you're on Laburnum with the traffic and the tractor trailer trucks. Where are all these tractor trailer trucks coming from?
That's a good question. I mean, they are, well, it's not let me not act like I don't understand your question. There are certain manufacturing facilities that people use Laburnum as a main thoroughfare and then branch off to go to wherever they're going. Laburnum is one of our major thoroughfare roads. So we try to make sure that it can handle adequate traffic. And in some certain areas, we have reduced the speed limit. And, there are definitely police officers there ticketing people. I've gotten a ticket on Laburnum. So we do have police coverage there. And, we have, because I've heard this before in the last 6 months, so we continue to just ask our traffic folk to be out there more, to continue to try to keep it as safe as it is. I know we have, if you are on Laburnum headed toward back down Laburnum, I guess when I say back down, away from Williamsburg and now Mile, if you go in the opposite way, then you will see that there are some places where some warehousing, et cetera, is kind of off the road. So that's probably where some of the truck traffic is going. But we'll do the best that we can to continue to try to keep Laburnum safe. So I drive Laburnum every day, so I understand some of the consternation. Yeah.
Limit has down,
Mhm.
but unfortunately, so many people don't obey the speed limits. So, I mean,
No, we have one of our community officers in the back, so I'm certain he's taking note, and we'll go back and tell the chief that the people say they want more officers on the road and giving us tickets. Yeah, because it probably will not be the tractor trailer drivers that get the tickets. It'll probably be us. So at our last meeting, we talked about, somebody brought up tractor trailer traffic on Elko Road or another road, and we had police out there 48 hours continuously, no break. And I think like 140, 150 tickets were issued, and like only 6 or 7 were for truckers, and the rest were for the neighborhood community persons. And so after those 2 days, they were like, "We're good. Tell them leave. We got the message." So, so we need to do our best. Take a couple more questions before we head out.
Oh, thank you. Hi. Many localities across the U.S. are banning artificial water fluoridation due to the fact that it harms the brain, similar to lead. So why are you choosing to deliberately add this toxic chemical and mineral into our public drinking water supply?
I support fluoride in the water. I'm not a scientist, and I haven't seen that. I don't want to get in. Thanks for coming to Varina, and I've answered your question. I support fluoride in the water. I don't want to get into a scientific debate. I trust the CDC and all the others who approved the use of fluoride in the water. So thanks for your question. All right, thank you, ma'am. Thanks for your question. Any other questions? Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate that. Thank you. Good people who are here, thank you for being here. Those of you who are watching online, we appreciate you. If you ever need me, my email address is varina@henrico.gov, or you can call 804-501-4208. I have my card, I have my cell phone number on there as well. All right? Y'all have a good rest of the day. Take care.